Welcome to Syntax. Today we're talking about the hottest, hypiest code editor out there. Seems like everybody's talking about it, and that is this thing called Cursor AI. And this is a new code editor that is trying to, once again, change the game of becoming the new AI coding assistant. And it's been a couple of months since we've had a show specifically on these AI coding ones, but I feel like things have progressed in the last couple of months, and Cursor is making a bit of a splash. I think partially because they have some serious funding behind them, and partially because it's actually really good. I'm very impressed at it. I'm kind of like, I'm a big GitHub Copilot, and I was like, oh, this is actually, I would say, significantly better than GitHub Copilot, which is saying something. So today we're going to sort of talk through why is it good and how do you use it? Is it worth it? All that good stuff. My name is Wes Boss, a developer from Canada. With me as always is Mr. Scott Talinsky. How are you doing today, Scott?
Oh, I'm doing super good, man. I got to agree on Cursor. This might come off a little glowing in this episode, but I promise this episode not sponsored by Cursor. In fact, none of these episodes are sponsored by anybody, but the show is presented by Sentry. So sentry.io/syntax. Let's face it, if you're using AI coding assistants, I know there's a number of folks who might not even know what code they're adding to their code base. And that's good business for Sentry, because Sentry can tell you if it found a bug. Maybe your AI coding assistant went off the rails here, and you need a system that makes sure that you're protected from issues that's going on in your application, production, development, all that stuff. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax and let's get going. You know what? One thing I've been noticing online, Wes, is that anytime Cursor gets brought up,
yeah,
especially on like online communities like Reddit or something like that, there's a lot of dismissive tone around it. A lot of people saying like, I don't know if it's just because it's an AI thing. You know, sometimes people get a little angry about the AI stuff, or if people see people talking it on Twitter. I hear a lot of people say this like, oh, it's like an influencer driven. It's not really that special. It's not really that interesting. But in my experience, when I tried it, I did find it to be magnitudes better than the experience of, you know, Copilot. And I get Copilot for free as being a GitHub star. And I would choose to use Cursor over Copilot after giving it a go. And again, not sponsored here. This is like genuine feelings about this thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about why it's so much better in just a sec, but I agree in that it is very good. I agree that they are sort of shaking it up, and I think like pushing the bounds of what is possible, because we're seeing these coding assistants get better and better every single day, because the context windows for what you can send to an LLM are getting much larger. So we had Kevin from Codium on a couple months ago, and he was explaining how they do quite a bit of stuff locally to figure out like what bits of your code can you send to the LLM. But as like something like Anthropic has 100,000 K context window, as you can send more data to it, it's able to have better context for what your code base looks like. So now GitHub Copilot is pretty good in that, like, oh, it can kind of detect like the style of code that you're writing. It can detect variables. I think it looks in your clipboard. They won't tell us that or not, but it can tell what tabs you have open, right? Like all of those little bits are context. And GitHub Copilot is really good for writing the code that you're working on right now. But this one, it will do that, but I think it takes it a step further in it will preemptively figure out what needs to change on your code base. It will create new files for you. The chat is really good. And like, we'll get into this now, is that I think the UI of Cursor has really nailed it. And that's the reason why Cursor is its own editor as well. So Cursor took VS Code, and I don't know if they forked it or they've added some stuff on top, and they've made their own editor, which I think is kind of a smart move. Aside from the whole, like, they took an open source project and raised $60 million and are trying to make a profitable company on top of it. They have taken VS Code, so lots of people are already using VS Code, and you can just, like, the barrier to moving is very, very low, because you can just move over all of your plugins and settings and whatnot. So the reason, and this is my first thing, I was like, this is really cool, but why is this not just a plugin, right? Did you think that as well, Scott?
I feel like it does too much for the interface for it to be a
Yes.
plugin. Now, I don't know. To me, it feels like there is enough augmentation into how it works within the interface that it couldn't just be a plugin.
That's exactly why.
That is exactly right. That's what it feels like, but for me, like you were saying, it being like VS Code, I think that nails
Yeah.
it because, we just released, or CJ just released a video on YouTube about VS Code, and like half the comments are like, "What about Zed? What about Zed? What about Zed? What
Yeah.
about Cursor?" And like one Cursor is VS Code with some stuff on top that's really nice, but Zed is a nice experience, but it's so far from VS Code for me that now I'm having to go in, I'm having to reinstall plugins. And before it didn't even have plugins. I'm having to find new themes. I'm having to readjust all of my keyboard shortcuts because, man, I have really tweaked my keyboard shortcuts over time to be exactly like how I want. And Zed
Yeah.
can't even do some of the things that I want those keyboard shortcuts to be. So as great as that editor is, and it's really nice, by not having that basis of VS Code, you're inherently going to make it tougher for people to switch. This was
Yeah.
effortless to switch. You have a note here that says your plugins didn't transfer properly, but for me, I opened it up, it transferred my plugins, and I was off to the races. Everything just worked.
Yeah, I'm still very bullish on Zed, and I think like long term, I'm glad that somebody is building a new editor from scratch, and it actually
Yes.
feels really good. But there, at a certain point, like I can't just stop and relearn something every single day. And when you want to try something new, if it just moves over, so let me explain that. They took VS Code and they added a whole bunch of UI to it, meaning that there's new pop-ups, there's new windows, there's new niceties, nice UI bits that were not possible in VS Code. And I thought that was very interesting because the reason why we moved from Sublime to VS Code all those years back is because VS Code gave you a bit more of a flexible UI so that plugins can do things. Oh, the hovering over top is a bit nicer. You can style things a little bit nicer. The tooltips have links inside of them. You can change the font size in these different bits. Just having full control over the UI that is around your code was, I think, a main reason why VS Code won. And now I really hope VS Code just takes what Cursor is doing here and just brings it back into it and gives us more UI available to plugins, because I've always found the GitHub Copilot, they like tab to complete and like select some stuff and chat about it. I found that decent, but when I moved over to Cursor and started trying it, I was like, this feels more comfortable. This feels like I understand what's going on. And it's because they've had to add that extra UI layer on top.
Yeah. Let's talk about that extra UI layer. And actually, that was what the completions here actually got me. It was a little hard for me when I first got started because I actually had modified my completion shortcut to be Command Enter instead of Tab, just because I wanted to, like, Tab was always bugging me that it would do completions on Tab. So I kept on having to get used to doing it on Tab again. I could have just changed that, but I haven't yet. So that was the one little hiccup I had. But other than that, it was a smooth transition. But yeah, let's talk about the UI and like what makes the UI interesting or different.
Yeah. So there's like a handful of ways that it will help you write code with AI. Like the two big ones that we have right now are the ghost code tab to complete and the chat, where you can like select some code and ask a question or say, can you please reformat this code to be, or add types to this code, right? Those are sort of the two. But Cursor takes it a little bit further, and it will try to give you, like the first one I have here is, it's called smart rewrites, which is I had an example of a loop that I was writing, and I had like four things that I was doing, and then the fifth thing that I was doing, it was some HTML, was not consistent with the rest of the other three. And immediately, as I was just looking at the file, it popped up a little diff on top of it and said, hey, you forgot to wrap this in a paragraph tag. And I wasn't even working on that part of the application, but it just sort of popped it up in front of me. Like, oh yeah, that is something that I want to do. So they call that smart rewrites. There's a fine line between it being super annoying and super helpful, because at times it will just start to pop stuff up and you're like, hey, how about this? What about this? And I had to turn it off. I was writing a complex loop the other day, and I had to turn it off for a second because it was trying to get too much ahead of me, and I needed to be like hold on a sec. Like, I need to think about this. Yeah, just chill.
Yeah, I feel that, I struggle with this in Copilot a lot too, where it's just like constantly popping up and you're just like, please stop. And one of the worst parts about that with Copilot that I don't have with Cursor is that because Svelte 5 is an RC, it's still new, the suggestions that it's giving you for a Svelte file with Copilot are often totally wrong, right? Because it's new stuff, right? It's not trained on the Svelte 5 code base necessarily.
Yeah.
But with Cursor, I don't know if it's just the context of having the rest of your application and the fact that I have all this Svelte 5 code in the app, but it was generating the Svelte 5 code correctly in ways that it couldn't for Copilot. So to me, that was like a big win in the fact that it is popping up, because again, when that pop-up pops up and it's not even close, it can be such an annoying experience, right?
Yeah. And even the diffs that pop up is kind of interesting as well, because sometimes it will just ghost code in the middle of where your cursor is, and that can be helpful, but it can also be very disorienting. And I find that the little diffs that it pops up over top of the code to be like a nice little bit of UI. Another cool thing is that it will make edits across multiple files, and it will also create files for you, which I think is really nifty. So if you tell it, hey, I'm trying to build an application that will save a bunch of data to a database and then display it with React on the front end, it will go ahead and create multiple files for you in your file system, one to connect to the database, one server-side function, and one on the client side. And that is really neat to have it both create those files, as well as if you want to make a sweeping change across your code base, it will show you the 3 or 4 spots throughout your code base where those things need to be changed. And that's so nifty because it must follow like the dependency graph of like requires, and it must know this is not just text, but these modules are related to each other in such a way. This function is defined here, but then exported here and used here. And it must know like how the code works together via all the symbols in your code base.
And how did you get that to do that? I have not. Is it via the chat interface? Is that how you're getting it to create new files?
Yeah, that was in the chat interface. So like here, I'll go to the chat interface and say like create a new HTML app. Maybe I should make a brand new. Well, let's try it. This is the syntax code base here. All right, so I'm creating a new one here. Created a new Svelte page that lists the post by their topic and view count. And then you are able to select which model you want it to run on. So this one is running on Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And then you can also mention parts of your code base. So you can reference files, folders, or symbols. So you know how like when you search for a specific function in your code base and you can see where that function is used in the code base, you can also reference, be like, use the function that I wrote here to select from the database. So I'm going to do it without, let's see what it generates for us here. So here's the chat. Now it's telling me, okay, this is what you need to do. Apply to transcripts.ts. So I could go ahead and do that. So here it's trying to edit the existing one. I think because I had opened a brand new project previously, it was actually creating new files for me. So
but you did get that through the chat itself. What's funny about even with Copilot, the chat interface is not typically something I use within the editor. I'll go to like Anthropic or Claude to type in the chat there, but for some reason I never use the AI
I find
chat.
It clunky. I use it every now and then, but then half the time I'll be like, I feel confused in the GitHub Copilot chat.
Yeah.
And confused enough where I'm just like, like that's
Yes.
how I feel about it.
Yes.
And I think that's because it's not doing exactly what I wanted, or I'm not sure how to use it properly. And I feel like this does a better job at that. And I would bet that Copilot's looking at this and be like, oh, we need to do that as well. This is a really nice UI. And the nice thing about GitHub Copilot is, guess who works down the hall from the GitHub Copilot people? The VS Code people, it's the same company. So I'm sure they can get stuff added to VS Code a little bit easier than if some other company that wanted to do this type of thing.
Yeah, I would be surprised if these VS Code folks are not looking at Cursor and being like, all right, what can we learn from this? Because again, the UI does feel that much better to me, where I would use this over using VS Code just because of the completions. And the fact, like I mentioned, it understands your code base. You can reference symbols and things like that. It's like that feels so much better than the application just looking at the current where you are and just guessing, right? Oh, you're hovering over an array. Maybe you want to do this right now, right? It feels like a lot of times with Copilot, it's just a big guess. And sometimes that guess is really nice and helpful. Like you have data structure and you're writing, a Svelte template or a React template. It's able to like really do a good job of appropriating that data structure to HTML structure. Like that kind of stuff is really nice and easy with Copilot. But when you need it to understand more about your application, I do find that personally it fails for me.
All right, I'm just going to do another example here. I asked it, create a React project that fetches a list of GitHub users via the API. It says, certainly. So first of all, you need to npx create React app, and then make a directory. So let's just try it. I'm going to run it, and let's see if it will.
Oh, it runs directly from there. Man, I have not tried this before.
Okay, to proceed. Yes, it's npm installing something.
The first thing you must do is remove system32.
So right off the bat, it's using create React app, which I probably would not do. I'd probably use Vite instead of that thing. And then also the second thing it's telling us to do is to npm install Axios, which again, I probably would use fetch. And then replace the contents. So let's just go ahead and do it. Maybe we can ask it to refactor it for these things. So now it's going to tell us to npm install Axios. Good. And then it says to make a source app.js. So let's go ahead and apply that. Continue. Oh, it failed here. The editor could not open because the file was not found. Okay, so maybe I have to now open up the app.js.
Says it wasn't found, huh?
Apply. Oh, so it wanted me to have that open. Go ahead. And it gives me a really nice diff of what's going to happen. So I'll go ahead and accept that. Good. Update app.css. So let's see if I apply. No. So now it's not switching the files for me, which I would expect it to.
Yeah, same.
So that's fine. So let's go ahead and, okay. And then go ahead and start it with npm start. Run. Would you like to run the port on a different port? Yes, I would. And it crashed. Cannot find module AJV code gen. So npm, let's see if I npm install. So a bit of egg on its face, I think. Yeah, so it's not running. It needs a little bit more to do this type of thing. So now maybe if I go back and say switch this project to Vite.
So it failed at the first one. Now you're going to tell it to switch to Vite. For people who are like think this is bad, you know what? Me personally, this is not what I use an AI tool for, and I know that a lot of people do. But I know it's like I find this tool to be more valuable for inline suggestions and kind of acting as like a second brain than do it for me. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like obviously this is like a failure of it trying to build an application for you. Totally. It didn't do a good job at all. And now when I asked it to switch to Vite, but actually using it in my real code bases, I was using it on my course platform. I used it on the Syntax website. The suggestions that I get from that were very good. I found that was excellent. So I think we're a long ways away from the AI doing it all for you. A very simple example of building a React application. It gives us 3-year-old code that doesn't run at the end of the day. A bit of a joke, but the actual using it in the application and where it gives you a little bit of context, a little bit of help throughout it, I find that, just as I love Copilot, to be very good.
Yeah. And let's go over like some of the features that they say, in case you're wondering, you're saying, all right, well, it can't generate all this code for me. Like one, it does really do a good job at like contextually aware generating code, just like Copilot, right? Gives you a suggestion, like a fancy autocomplete can help you. The multiple line edits, like it can suggest to edit multiple lines at once is really great. Super duper handy. Smart rewrites. It will fix your mistakes. So if you're typing something, this happens to me all the time. In CSS, you leave out a colon. One of the ones I do, Wes, is I do font style and then a number instead of font size, because FS in Emmet auto completes to font style for some reason instead of font size. Come on.
Oh yeah, you got to do FZ.
I know. What's up with that? It also like does a really good job at answering questions about your code. So you can have it, you have some code in front of you. Maybe a coworker wrote it and it wasn't commented very well. Maybe it's a Rust function and you don't write Rust and you have no idea where to go for this. You can very quickly and easily just say, hey, what does this do? And then it tells you very directly in a nice little pop-up exactly what's going on with this. So you can get quick questions about your code. You can get autocomplete with AI in your terminal. So you can use like terminal autocompletions like Warp, which is really great. You get that, hey, I want to do this in my command line. And then it can tell you in text how to do it. Wes is doing the multi-line autocomplete right now.
The multi-line thing I really like because VS Code a couple of months ago introduced the ability to autocomplete multiple selectors. So if you have a selector on 3 lines, it will suggest something on the first line, but you can tab it and it will do the rest. This one will give you individual completions for each of them, which I think is pretty nifty. So I have here item 1 and item 2, and right away it's suggesting to me in edit that you can hit tab on and finish it. But I kind of wish that it would like, what if I'd make this red? I'm on item 2. I've border 1 pixel solid and item 3, 1 pixel dashed. Let's see if it will autocomplete the color. No, it's not doing it. Oh, it is. There we go. It did do it for me. The other cool thing there is it tried to detect where my cursor wanted to go. So instead of you having to jump around, I was on item 3 and it knew that I had to then fix item 2. So it immediately put a little tab icon on item 2 and said, hey, if you hit tab, I'll bring your cursor back up here. So it tries to predict where you want to go. I don't know if that's going to be all that helpful or not, but maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? We'll see. It's not something that I've needed to use, and it's not something I've been like, God, I gotta have that. But I could see it being handy in some situations, especially like you have open a CSS file. I could see it being handy specifically in CSS when you have a situation that you can't use a loop because you're not using Sass. You could use that type of thing where it's like kind of impossible to write totally dry code there. So I could definitely see that being something I would use, but not something I have used or have really thought about too much. One thing I don't know if you've really checked out, Wes, is the ability to manage docs inside of here.
No.
So this is one thing that I really like about this is that, like, again, for Svelte 5, the code is too new, so the documentation is not most likely going to be in the model, right?
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can give cursor context via docs. So you can add custom docs where you add a new doc and you paste it to the landing page of the documentation. So for me, it was whatever Svelte 5, whatever, the Svelte 5 docs site, right? It's not an official site, or it's the official site, but it's not like the normal URL. So I can say, hey, here's Svelte 5 docs. Here are the docs page. Go crawl this page, and then there's an index button. You just click index, and it goes off, and it indexes the entire doc site.
Oh, man.
And it adds the docs to context. And that is super valuable to me. Or anytime that you're working with a library or something that's newer, right? I've been getting into a little bit of game dev lately, Wes, and Godot is the framework I'm using, and Godot had a 4.3 version come out recently. And likewise, so many of the LLMs, when you try to talk to them about game development, considering I'm like new about this stuff, so I do want to have some AI assistants to help me answer my questions at the very least. It's giving me like Godot version 3 or even version 4 answers that aren't relevant to what I'm looking for. So the ability to give this something like the exact version number for the docs would be really great. And, like in Rust, the docs pages all have like really good automatically generated API docs within Rust. So you could just paste in that if you want a specific version of a specific package that you're working with and get the exact docs that you want, and then you can reference those docs. Wes is doing it with an @ sign to @ the name of the docs and then ask questions of those docs. So this is going to be a great opportunity if you're out there and you want to pick up something new, or a new version library has come out and you want to ask questions about it. You can give it that docs as context so easily. That rules.
So I just added the TANstack router docs because it wasn't listed in the docs. It went off and indexed them. So I'll ask it, display the current page search params in a div on the page, create a new component. So import use search from TANstack /React router. Is that the package name?
I love how everything we're throwing at it is questionable if it's working after we're praising it so much.
Let's see. It might be. Let me just double check. Yeah, that's the right one. And use search is the correct hook. Yes. And then JSON stringifies it, creates a new component. Yeah. So it's good. So what it did there is it had no idea of the TANstack, of what TANstack router was. I added it as docs. It went out, parsed the docs, and then wrote me the correct code for the hook on that. Impressive. I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely impressive. And like with any of this stuff, it's certainly not perfect. I think a lot of times you get into anything like AI tools, and I don't know what it is, but I know it's like people just you don't want to give into some of this stuff sometimes, and I get it, but I think there's a lot of like, LOL, look, it failed, But that's okay. It's going to fail, One of the things about being a developer is that these tools aren't replacing us. They're augmenting us, especially right now, right? They're augmenting our abilities, and without having that solid structure of knowing what you're doing and your skills, your abilities, they're not that valuable because they're going to fail. They're going to send you down wrong paths. And sure, that's bad. But at the same time, you are the person who's responsible for the code, right? You are writing the code even if the LLM is generating it for you. You are the arbiter of if this thing should make it into the code base, not the LLM. So the LLM is there to help you. The interface is there to help you. It's not there to, completely do everything for you. You have to be aware if it's going to be working or not.
It's a booster pack, and it will help you be a better developer. At least now, there's been lots of examples of things that were supposed to replace us, so much that it's a bit of a joke.
Dreamweaver.
Because but like Devon AI, all these coding. Years ago, we had Grid that can make a website. Oh, yeah. No, it's not going to do it start to stop. But I don't think I would like to go back to a spot where I wasn't using an AI coding assistant, right? And I think that people that write it off 100% don't see the value that you can get from that type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's healthy to be somewhere in the middle, right? You have to be skeptical of the output it gives you, but at the same time, they can be very valuable tools to help you out and save you a lot of time. You can accomplish a lot of stuff. And I found personally, when working with Cursor more than Copilot, for some reason, I found my productivity level to be very high. I'm creating a lot of stuff, and I'm creating it. It's not like Copilot's creating it or Cursor's creating it. I'm creating it. It's just helping me, right? It's helping me take away some of that tedious time.
Cautiously optimistic. I find there's many areas in my life, especially like having an electric car now. Everybody comes out of the woodwork and tries to like argue you about it, and I'm just like, well, no, like I'm not here to like tell you it's the end all be all, absolutely going to replace everything, and I'm not also here to like be your punching bag for it. Like I have. Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice car, and I like it, but there's people on both sides of the conversation that are just so obnoxious and cannot like reasonably see how everything works, and I find it the same with a lot of this AI stuff where people are like, it's absolutely everything. It's going to replace everything. We have to get guaranteed income for everybody because there will be no jobs in 6 months from now. And then there were other people who were like, give me a Notepad++ and a gun because I am not going to ever touch that AI stuff.
It's so much like that. And the electric car thing is really like a good microcosm of that conversation because, man, people are just misinformed on all sides of it. And I talk to a lot of parents and stuff who ask me about my electric car. I get a lot of parents being like, how do you like it? And I've had mine for like 2 years now. So it's like I have a good feel for it. And there's definitely like pros and cons to anything. But I think the people who are just so hardlined anti on anything or even like pro on anything to the point where
too. There's people that are like, I can't think of a single thing I would want to do where my car would not wear. It's like, well,
that's not
I can think of a few things as right now as well. I specifically, I don't know if you saw this, Scott, but I put a card for a show talking about electric cars, now that we both have one. And I feel like we have a fairly good voice of reason in these types of things. As someone with, I think, probably more than 15 motors, things that run, I feel like I can give a good outlook on what it's like.
Wes, I got to tell you, this is going to be very annoying to some people who may consider us a tech bro, or at some point I've been called a tech bro on Twitter, even though I don't identify as that. But
like, I don't think you can identify as it. It's just
I know my identity is not a tech bro. I get it. Yeah, and I don't mean that like as in the whatever how people say they identify as things or whatever. I'm not a tech bro. Regardless, I'm sitting in my stupid electric car in the parking lot wearing my VR headset that's connected to my computer, kicked back with my phone plugged in. I'm just the goofiest stuff in the whole world. I'm in like very like farm country Colorado. Yeah. I am surprised my car didn't get vandalized while I'm sitting there in my VR headset or whatever. All these people are like prime territory for people who are going to roll coal on your car or something.
Oh, man. That's funny. I put a V8 badge on our Tesla just to diffuse those type of people. But I don't know. I don't think that those people exist as much as we think. I know you've run into a few people, but let's save that for the episode on electric cars because I think it's a kind of an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. So, I mean, what else can this thing do that makes it valid or interesting or worthwhile to switch over? I don't know, man. It just to me personally, as a assistant, that's it enough for me to make this thing a tool that I want to pick up instead of VS Code. The fact that I get all of my keyboard shortcuts, plugins, themes, all that stuff along for the ride, it's great. What about pricing? How do you feel about the pricing? Because this is not free, and neither is Copilot. It's $20 a month, and for $20 a month, you get unlimited completions, 100 fast premium requests.
What the hell does that mean? They always, and maybe we should say is that a Cursor works with multiple models. I think we did even say that as well, is that you can choose which model you want it to run on. which is pretty cool that they're not hiding the fact that they are using these big AI services. I really like that, because like a lot of times people will be like, it's our own custom trained AI. And it's like, you're actually just pinging the OpenAI API.
Did you see that rabbit device? Man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that thing was like it is. It's just a wrapper, and it's using Playwright to browse the web. But then it's like people are able to reverse engineer it or figure out what's going on. And they were trying to proclaim that it was this and that and this one. Now it's like, no, man, it's just a wrapper in a hardware device. That's fine, but like you can say that. It doesn't have to be some sort of grand thing. But then, of course, you're not going to get the money for it.
I think it's a VC thing. Yeah.
It's a VC thing. It says for fast premium request uses, fast uses of premium models are given first priority by our backend. On Pro, once you hit your fast usage limit, you can still use premium models, but your requests may be queued behind others at times of high load. I haven't had any queuing issues myself, but I don't know if I've necessarily hit any of these limits.
You're probably still in the 2-week trial, aren't you?
I am past the 2-week trial.
Okay, so you're on the hobby plan then, which is free.
Yes, I'm on the hobby plan, which is free. I'm upgrading to the pro shortly, though. Yeah.
$20. Like that's a spicy meatball, I think.
It's a spicy meatball. I agree.
If you were to ask me, would you spend $200 on a code editor? I would say, maybe. Probably not. I would, like what was Sublime? Like $60, $70? You buy that every couple of years. But then you ask me, would you spend $20 a month, which is $240 a year, on a plugin for your editor? That's a lot. But especially if you compare it, what is Copilot is $10 a month, Codium 15. I'm pretty sure Code Whisperer, which is AWS, I think that's about 15 as well. So this is by and far the most expensive coding assistant that has even popped up. So it's not something to take lightly. Like, $20 a month, it's maybe $1 a day of working. That doesn't seem like a lot. But then you think, are you going to be spending $300 Canadian a year on this type of thing? That's quite a bit. But I honestly think that there is value in this type of thing. I think it does speed you up. If you have to, or you're one of those people where you have to like make it worth it, like you have to do the math. I'm one of those type of people, talk about electric car. I crunched the numbers on that thing. Does it make sense? And $1 a day, like how much time does it really have to save you per day to make that $1 a day worth it? Not a ton, I don't think.
It depends, right? If you have a business, if you are working for a company that's going to pay for it. I mean, that the cost of it being a business expense, I mean, that makes it a little bit more palatable than just paying out of pocket for this thing that is your, coding assistant, especially if you're a solo developer. But you have a freelance business, I mean, it's a write-off, it's free money.
You just write it off. I don't think you know what that means. Yeah. I don't.
Is that from Schitt's Creek or something, where he's just like,
you just write it off at the Seinfeld.
Oh, there's a whole Schitt's Creek thing too, where he's buying like lamps for their hotel room, and he's like, it's a write-off. And the same thing. You don't know what that means. Yeah. That's super funny.
So pretty interesting. I totally expect, like I heard they raised $60 million. I totally expect them to go hard on the team users. Like the money in this stuff, you see it with Warp, you see it with Raycast, you see it with everything. The money in this stuff is not you paying $10 a month. The money is you go to a business that has 3,000 developers, and every single developer is paying $40 a month for the pro version. You can get stats, and you can upload custom code bases, and you get a little bit better privacy. You can use your own versions of specific things. You can enforce privacy mode. That's where the big money is for this type of thing. And for a company raising that much money, I foresee that type of thing being pushed pretty hard on us in the coming years. But for now, pretty happy with it. And I think we'll probably follow up this conversation in 6 months from now and being like, hey, did you try the new Sand AI? And it's so good, like it seems like every single day there's something new that rolls out in this space.
So, Wes,
Yes.
the verdict is okay. Let's have some big questions here. Is
Yes.
Cursor is it a massive shift in the AI landscape for coding?
No, because they're not like they didn't even make any. I think they have their own Cursor small AI thing, but most of this stuff is using existing models that you and I can take a quarter, or not even a quarter. We could take like 3 cents and go do these types of things. The value in this is how they are scanning your code base and architecting. And to me, quite honestly, the value here is the UI that they're doing. So is it a massive game changer? The reason we like it is because it is so nice to use. And that is not something that VS Code can't do. I guarantee you VS Code will come out with this type of stuff within the next 6 months. And then we'll be like, oh, now GitHub Copilot can do this type of stuff, especially how hard GitHub is going on the AI front, right? They're an AI company now. You've got to think that they're working on something like this right now. So
yeah,
I'm so on the fence. I have another week left of the trial, and I don't know that I want to move over or not. The biggest problem was half of my plugins didn't move over. So I have to like one by one move them over. I tried reinstalling it and all that, and I don't know what happened, but yeah, we'll see.
I just didn't have that experience in terms of the plugins thing.
Yeah.
And here's another question. Is Cursor overhyped influencer garbage?
Yeah, I like, well, not, no, yeah, but no. Yeah. I learned the other day that people from New Zealand, when they want to say no, they say yeah. So yeah. I think, of course, everybody wants to talk about the new and exciting thing. Me and you, we're excited about this. It's something new. It seems to be a really great update, so we're pretty stoked about it. Is it a little bit overhyped? I think so. I think something brand new like this is pretty overhyped. When all the AI stuff initially hit, it was a game changer. We're all overhyped. And now here we are complaining about GitHub Copilot a year later. Yeah. So I don't think it's garbage, but I think it is hyped up because it's something that's new and exciting in our industry, and we like that type of thing.
Yeah, so it's not garbage. It's not a paradigm shift. It is overhyped, but it's
not
good.
A game changer.
It's not a game changer, but it's good.
It's good.
I think we live in a world right now where, like, if it's not a game changer, it sucks. That's just the way people operate. Is this thing a 10 out of 10? No, then it's a 0. Okay. But that's really not the case here. I do think that it's good. Whether or not it's worth that $20 a month is something that you have to decide for yourself. Mm-hmm. But it is good.
It's the biggest leap forward I've seen in this whole AI coding space probably in the last year.
What's crazy is that you can say that and then also say it's overhyped, because I agree with that entirely. It's just that people get really excited or carried away, and then there's the pushback, and then there's the whole back and forth. But the clear view of this thing is like we're saying, it is a big shift. It's really good. It's not garbage. It is novel. There are awesome things about it, but at the same regard, you don't need it. It's not it's not going to write your app for you or something like that. So that's kind of how I feel about it all.
How many more of these holy crap AI moments can we have? At what point does it start to slow down? We had it with Midjourney, we had it with GPT-4, we had it with the OpenAI video generation. It feels like we're running out of holy crap moments, and I might be wrong there, but it feels like there's been a lot in this space in the last year or two.
Yeah, there's only going to be more. That's for sure.
Yeah. Cool. I think that is enough about Cursor. Should we move into some sick picks?
Yeah, let's get into some sick pics. I have a YouTube channel today, and they
Yes.
don't have that many videos, but every single one of them has been really well executed, and I would say just a great watch if you're into this stuff. This is Iron Historian. It's documentaries about bodybuilding. And man, I'm not a bodybuilder. I do lift weights, and I have been doing that for quite some time now. But these things are just like full on profiles about these people's lives that I've never heard of. Like Tom Platz, the man who nearly dominated bodybuilding. I didn't know anything about this guy beforehand, but his story was super fascinating. He's from Michigan, or at least maybe not directly from Michigan, but he came up in that area. And man, I didn't know anything about a lot of these folks. And these little documentaries are anywhere from 35 minutes to an hour long or so. And
Yeah.
if you're the type of person who likes this kind of a little mini documentary, these things are really well produced, especially for a
Cool.
channel that only has 5 videos out. So I don't know where this person got their chops, from, but like, dang, they did a really great job.
Cool. I'll have to check that on out. I'm going to sick pick a set of salt and pepper mills. So for probably about 10 years, I've owned the Le Creuset salt and pepper mills, which have been pretty good. But I dropped it the other day and it cracked. And I thought every now and then it gets clogged. And every now and then when you're grinding it, the top of it spins off because you grind in the opposite direction of, maybe not. Anyways, it fell apart every now and then. And I was like, this is good, but I don't love it. So I went down the rabbit hole of researching salt and pepper grinders for probably a year. Every now and then I was just like, I feel like there's got to be one that's just the best out there. And I did all the research, and I thought it was going to be this like beautiful titanium milled salt and pepper grinder set that's like $200. And it ended up being the OXO salt and pepper grinder set. And
OXO.
let me tell you, they don't look as nice as the Le Creuset set that I have, but they are freaking amazing. So the OXO salt and pepper grinder, I don't know if you're one of those people that grinds their salt as well, but we're a family that does that. And the adjustability on it is like really, really good. You can see how much salt is left, which I tend to really enjoy that as well. Because the other ones you like, oh, it's out. Is it out? It doesn't get caked up like my other one did. So man, I think it was like $30 or $40 for the set. I got it from Costco.ca, and it's been one of those things where every time I use them, I go, this is a good set. And I find that with anything OXO I buy, where it's just like, man, they thought about this.
Yeah, I'll actually even throw my salt and pepper grinder into the ring here too, because it's like $40, $39 for each one. And it's hefty in terms of like, oh yeah, it's stainless steel, whatever. The grinder is like really, really good. It doesn't choke up on anything. And yeah, we use some chunky salt, some chunky pepper and stuff. So ours does a really good job of it too, if for some reason.
What's it called?
It's the Lars Nysum, LARSNYSM, and you can get it in any color, and they look nice. I just got it on Amazon.
Oh yeah. Is this like a battery powered one?
No, just a normal.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, like this is what I wish the OXO one looked like.
They do look nice.
Sleek.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
Although when I got these, Courtney was not impressed with how they looked. I think she wanted something more like homey.
Oh yeah, like a wood one. I want to get one of those ones that are like, you're at a restaurant and they bring out the like 5-foot pepper grinder. And how hilarious would that be? Those are the kinds of jokes that I live for in my family, where you just bring out something that's hilariously sized.
That is actually very funny. I can picture that. I can picture it now. Just was busting it out for the first time.
What did we do the other day? We there's these ballpark hot dogs that they sell, which with like Blue Jays branding on them, and like ballpark hot dogs are like 20 inches long, right, or 15 inches long. So I bought those, and then I bought the smallest buns I could possibly find. And then I was like, all right, everyone, sit down. It's dinner time. Close your eyes. And then I put the like 20-inch hot dog on like a 5-inch bun. And that went over super well with my kids. They thought that was hilarious.
They thought that was funny? Okay. That is very funny.
Cool.
Man.
All right, I think that's it. Anything else to add?
No, I have nothing else to add. Let us know what you think. Are you using Cursor? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Have you not tried it? Are you using Zed? Do you prefer Zed? What do you like about Zed? VS Code. You're always on VS Code. Heck, are you one of those people who's just going to comment about NeoVim? Go ahead. So, yeah, let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'll do a show on Zed as well. I've been dipping into it every now and then for projects, but that hump of moving over to it is tricky.
It's a little tough, and some of my favorite features of VS Code are still not in Zed. So, and they're dumb features, but they're ones that I've gotten like really used to using. Also, I did make a syntax Zed theme, so if you are one of those folks who love Zed, check out the syntax theme. It's kind of nice.
Oh yeah, somebody made a Cobalt 2 Zed theme and transferred it over to me last week. So
that was nice.
I'm gonna. It's like 80% there, so I've still got to put a little bit of work into making it look officially Cobalt 2. But if you are a Cobalt 2 user, know that we are working on it.
Sick. Cool.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.